Hi, everyone. I wanted to take some time to discuss and review with you guys embedding quotations. This is a really, really important concept that you will be required to know, to understand, to show me your understanding of this skill throughout the entire year, and in fact, throughout the rest of your academic career. Embedding quotes is always required when you are writing and using evidence to prove and to support your ideas. All right. So there's a lot of information here. Make sure you're really paying attention. If you zone out at any point, make sure you stop and back it up and begin the video again. All right, we use quotes, of course, to provide evidence, to build credibility, to help prove our ideas. This could be quotes from research, quotes from poetry, quotes from, movies or audio, whatever your resource is. Using quotes is necessary to support your position. When we talk about embedding quotes, what we're saying is that you cannot just drop a quote into your paragraph or into your writing. You must incorporate it with some words of your own. There are 4 ways to incorporate quotes into your writing, and we are going to talk about these 4 ways. So I'm not going to give a whole lot of information from the slide. I'm just going to keep on going. Always think about what it is that's going to be the most effective way for you to prove your position when you are trying to decide how you should embed the quote. I mentioned a moment ago, do not drop a quote right in the middle of your sentence without introducing it. Here's an example of what you are not allowed to do. If we look here, we have Alexander Hamilton had the same idea as the British, period. That's a complete sentence. It's a great sentence. It's fine. But if you notice, right after that, we have that quotation mark, which of course indicates that this is a quote. It's not my own writing. It's not my own ideas. I've gathered it from some outside research. I cannot ever start a sentence with a quotation mark. I have to embed it. So when we talk about dropped quotes, that's what we mean, where you have just literally dropped or plunked a quote into your paragraph and it is not embedded. Although this is a complete sentence or sentences, it is not embedded and therefore it's not correct. How do we fix that though? There's multiple ways that we can fix that. Number 1 is to use a colon. Whatever comes after the colon has to make a complete sentence, and it should be an example of what your own writing is. It should be that comes before the colon. It should prove that. So here we have Alexander Hamilton had the same idea as the British, colon. The plan is to give them their freedom with their muskets. Okay, so we can look at this and we can say, okay, Alexander Hamilton had the same idea as the British. I could put a period there. It is a complete sentence. Then the quote itself is a complete grammatical sentence. But if I put a period, then I have it embedded. And again, that's wrong. So I can simply change that period to a colon since this quote is proving what my first sentence says. It is explaining what this idea is that Alexander Hamilton had. The second level is to incorporate the quote like it's a piece of dialogue. So a lot of us have, written stories. You've had to do that for school. Maybe you do that on your own. Or when you read a book and you have, the character said, CC said, Christian said, comma. Okay, that's what you could use as well. So over here, a different quote, we have, according to Adam Zielinski, a historian for the Museum of the American Revolution, comma. And then we have our sentence, creating a slave insurrection in the southern states might have drawn the colonists back into a regional mindset and perhaps caused them to look at Parliament to end the unrest. Okay, so here's the like the dialogue, if you will. This is who said this line or who wrote the line according to Adam Zielinski, comma. Now, in this particular example, I don't think anyone knows who Adam Zielinski is, so I've added a brief description, a historian for the Museum of the American Revolution. And I still have to have a comma, not a colon, because it's not a complete sentence, not a period, because one, it's not a complete sentence, and two, then I wouldn't be embedding the quote, not a semicolon, but a comma. Level 3, and really level 3 and level 4 are very similar. We kind of separate them out sometimes, but even on your practice that you'll do today, you can see that I've combined level 3 and level 4 together. Okay. Level 3 is incorporate the quotation in your own sentence, often using the word that. The word that replaces a comma. So you cannot have that with a comma after it because it would be redundant. The English forces believed that creating a slave insurrection in the southern states might have drawn the colonists back into a regional mindset and perhaps looked to Parliament to end the unrest. Okay? What I want you to do is pretend for a moment that this quotation mark is not there. If you read this sentence without the quotation mark, no punctuation is necessary, right? Putting a comma, putting a period, putting a colon, it wouldn't make sense. So what I want you to understand is that just because you have a quote or a quotation mark here, it doesn't mean that you always have to have a piece of punctuation in front of it. All right? If you put a comma after the word that, it is incorrect. It's wrong. Okay? But again, if I read this as if it's all my own writing, all my own words, and it's not a quote, then no punctuation is necessary, right? The last level then is embedding short pieces of quotes into your own sentence. We call these sprint quotes. You will hear me use that term sprint quotes often because it's shorter. So instead of having an entire sentence or heaven forbid more than one sentence in a quote, I can identify the most important part from what I want to quote, the most important part of that sentence, and I can surround it with my own words. And this definitely takes some practice and it takes some skill, but this will make your writing so sophisticated. So rather than simply hoping to give freedom to the enslaved people, the British hoped creating a slave insurrection would sow faction between the southern and northern colonies, causing the South to side with the British Parliament to end the unrest. Okay, so you can see that I have just a phrase here and I have just a phrase here that I took from the original quote, but I've incorporated it into my own sentence. Okay, and again, notice how with both of these, there's no punctuation in front of the quote. Again, if you pretend that that quotation mark is not there and it was all my own words, any punctuation would be incorrect. It wouldn't make sense. Okay. This is going to be your goal, to use only sprint quotes in your writing by the end of the semester and not have to use an entire sentence every single time that you quote. We have a couple of slides about parenthetical citations. Remember, parenthetical citations or in-text citations are included at the end of a quote, on the inside of the parentheses. I'm sorry, on the inside of the period. Okay, so this first one says, do you need a parenthetical citation? And it's saying, well, if you included the author's last name in your lead-in. So remember that first one, it was like, the second one, according to Adam Zielinski, and we had the comma. Well, Adam Zielinski is who said or who wrote that line that I'm quoting. So I don't need to put his name in that parenthetical citation. But if I have a page number, then yes. Even though his name wouldn't be necessary, if there's a page number, then yes, I have to have the citation at the end of the quote, and then I put my period right here after that parenthesis. But if there are no page numbers, for instance, when we do a lot of database research or online research, you might not have page numbers, okay? And if there are no page numbers and I use the author's name in the lead up to the quote, then no, I don't have to have a parenthetical citation because I've already given credit to the author of that line. Of course, though, if I did not include the author's last name in the lead up, then of course I have to have the parenthetical citation. And that, of course, would be the author's last name, page number if there is a page number, or just the author's last name if there's not a page number. Another common concern or issue that students have is, what if the grammar of my quote does not fit the grammar of my sentence? Or what if my quote uses a pronoun to replace someone's name or to replace an event, and I haven't mentioned what that pronoun is referring to? All right. So what if the grammar of my quote does not fit the grammar of my sentence, or if something is unclear? As long as you do not change the meaning of the quotes, you may make grammatical changes within brackets. Please notice these are the squared off brackets. These are not parentheses. But you can see here, Alexander Hamilton had the same idea as the British, colon. The plan is to give who, what, all right? Maybe you haven't mentioned it previously within your paragraph, so you need to tell your reader to give who, all right? The enslaved people. So you can see that's in brackets. The brackets indicate that this is something that you, the writer of the paper, have added or changed. What if I want to leave a piece of my quotation out? That's another important skill because, again, sometimes sentences are really, really long, but you don't need all of that, all right? So as long as you do not change the meaning of a quote, you can use ellipses. Ellipses are the ... the 3 periods. In general, you do not need to use them at the beginning or end of the quote. So if you are not going to start quoting at the beginning of the sentence, you don't need to put ellipses in at the beginning. Or if you want to finish your quote before the sentence is done, you don't need to put ellipses at the end. Okay, it's only if kind of in the middle you're going to take some of the words out. Okay, use 3 dots if you remove less than a full sentence. Use 4 if you removed more than a full sentence. Whoops. So here's an example. Hamilton believed that if the colonists did not offer freedom to enslaved peoples in exchange for fighting on the Patriot side, that again, you can see this is a sprint quote. I'm embedding it within my own sentence. I don't need any punctuation. That their enemy probably would, notice the bracket, and so he proposed to give them freedom with their muskets. I've deleted or not included more than one sentence. To give them freedom with their muskets, secure their fidelity, animate their courage, and make them a part of the cause by opening a door to their emancipation. So you can see that there are kind of 3 different sets of quotes here that all came from the same passage regarding Alexander Hamilton, but I didn't need to use the whole entire thing. So I narrowed it down. I've identified what's the most important part that I need. And I've only used that. Okay, so quick reminders here at the end. Always embed your quotes. Choose carefully which embedding method you need to use or will be best for your paper. Pay attention to your citations and use ellipses and brackets correctly. You are going to do a practice now with embedding a quote. So make sure you go back and to your Canvas page and you find that assignment.